Aloha, this is Veronica. Welcome to another class. Today we'll be focusing on hips, but very gentle, very stretchy grounding class, perfect for beginners. You will need 2 blocks and we'll start in a recline butterfly. So you can set one block just between the shoulder blades and one to support your head. If you have a bolster or pillows, you can also use those or even place them on top of the blocks to make it a little more comfortable. Placing right hand on your belly, left hand on your heart, or you can just leave your arms alongside of your body, depending on whichever feels more comfortable. And then starting to tune inwards, focusing on your breathing. Taking a slow, smooth inhale in and deep breath out. Taking this time to sort of center inwards, slow down, soften the mind. Maybe take a moment to check in with your body, especially with the hips, since we are focusing on the hips. See how your hips are feeling right now. Taking a few more deep breaths in here. And then let's stretch the arms over the head. Give yourself a little stretch. Be mindful as it can add a bit of tension onto the low back. And then using your hands, you can help your legs come together. Slowly rise yourself up high enough just to remove your props aside. And then lower back down. Alright, extending the left leg down, guiding the right knee towards your chest. You can also pull the knee closer towards your shoulder to get deeper into the groin muscles. And then let's circle out that ankle. And then reaching on the inside of your right knee, getting into a half happy baby. You can grab your shin or your toes, whatever you can reach. Making sure to pull that thigh parallel to the ground, keeping your foot flexed. And then a nice 90-degree angle at the knee. Alright, dropping that leg down, let's switch to the opposite side. So left knee towards your chest or your shoulder. Couple of circles for the left ankle. And then once you feel ready, making sure to reach your left arm on the inside of your left leg to grab the shin or your toes and get into a half happy baby. Notice your right leg, how it lifts, so make sure you keep that leg as straight and engaged as possible. Alright, shaking off your legs, your feet, and then let's guide both knees to the chest. Opening the knees, reaching your arms on the inside to reach for your shins or your toes. And getting yourself into a full happy baby. Just nice and playful pose. You can add some rocking and swaying. Remember to keep pulling your knees, your thighs parallel to the ground. Keep pulling your thighs more parallel to the ground and notice if your tailbone rises off of the ground. If so, make sure to pull it back down so the spine should not leave the mat, the ground, while you're guiding those thighs closer to the ground. Alright, let's release the feet. Place the arms along the sides of your body. Firmly pressing into the soles of your feet, begin to lift your hips up and off of the ground. Try to lift them as high as it's comfortable, maybe a little uncomfortable, so challenging yourself slightly. And notice if your knees opened out to the side, so make sure to keep your knees about hip distance. Let's slowly lower those hips back down. And then hug them towards your chest, maybe rocking. And then sliding your hands underneath your knees, we're going to rock our way up. If you're in a nice soft environment, maybe rock your way up a few times. Usually that feels quite nice for the spine. And then making our way into a tabletop to transition into a child's pose. So opening your knees a little wider, you can go as wide as your mat. Make sure your toes are pointing together. And then dropping your head down. Make sure your head is supported, whether that's the ground, a block if needed, or you can also use your arms by holding the opposite elbows. Relax your tailbone and breathe into your hips. Visualize you can direct the breath along your spine. Let's give another deep breath in. Start to rise up, realigning your knees. And then we're going to extend the right leg out along the hips. Make sure your foot is flexed. And then begin to move your body weight back and forth. You should feel a really nice stretch onto the inner thigh, the groins, potentially the hamstrings if there is a lot of tightness. Lowering down onto the forearms will increase the stretch, so please be mindful, see how it works. And the further back you push, the more intense it is. Alright, angling the toes out, heel in. Let's get deeper into those hips. Just basically moving in and out of that hip space. Remembering your breath and notice how your body reacts. If there is any resistance in the hips, if so, try and breathe through it. You can even lean into it and really work with that discomfort. Alright. Swinging that right leg around to get into modified side plank. Bringing the right arm over your head, really focusing on opening your body. You can push your hips forward or technically towards the right side. And even slightly lean your upper body back. And then let's drop the right hand back to the mat. Relax your right leg. And then let's go through a few cat and cow stretches. So making sure you're using your inhale to gaze forward, pulling your shoulders back. Exhale, the exact opposite, you round your back, pull your belly in, tap on under. And again, inhale, rise your way up. And then let's repeat the same little flow onto the opposite side. So you're going to extend your left leg out. Again, along the hips, make sure your foot is flat, moving slightly back and forth. Really just exploring how your body reacts, where it feels a little more intense, potentially dropping to your forearms, especially if you did so on the other side. And then gradually making your way out of this. So you want to bring the foot closer, toes up, knee pointing diagonally out to the left, and then leaning in and out of the hip. Notice if this side maybe feels a little tighter than the opposite side. There is always one side that's a bit trickier. So pay attention again to how your body is responding. And then transitioning into our beginner side planks. So swinging the left leg around. Remember to push your hips forward. Stretching the left arm overhead. Maybe even leaning slightly back. Feel those hips opening up nicely, whole front body. And then let's come back to our tabletop and once again allow for a few cat and cow stretches before you transition your way into a wide-legged child's pose. Maybe placing your knees a little wider than the first one we've done. And then again, use your blocks or use the ground to make sure you feel supported. Adding some rocking and movement. And as you move your hips from side to side, let your head follow. It usually feels really nice just to massage the forehead, the space between your eyebrows. Wonderful. Remembering your breath. Soften into those hips. Let's gradually start to rise our way out of this stretch. Using the blocks, realigning your knees a little closer. Let's send the right leg forward. And this is really important. Make sure you have enough gap between your foot and your knee so your knee doesn't overlap too much, just as I showed. So you want to keep the knee above the ankle as you lean forward, and then just lean back and forth a few times, readjusting your foot as necessary. So what we're doing, we're really just warming those hips up before we get into our low lunge. Once you're set, optional to bring your arms overhead and taking a couple of breaths in here. This is a really wonderful stretch. It increases flexibility and it can help with stability. We're working the quads, the hip flexors, a little bit of the abdomen. So really focus on your breath. It's not an easy pose. Let's drop the arms down using your blocks for support, and then transitioning into a counter pose. So you're going to get into what's called half monkey or half split. Sometimes you need to wiggle your right heel further away from your body. We basically want to keep the hips above. We want to try and keep the hips above the back knee. It's okay if your right leg is bent, but make sure your toes are pointing out. So keeping some flexion in that leg, so we're really working onto the muscle as opposed to the tendons. And then of course using your blocks accordingly. Also imagine you want to bring your chest towards your right foot as opposed to rounding your way down, so we're stretching the spine as well. Breathing in, and then slowly breathing out. With inhale, we're going to transition into a lizard, so you're going to slide your right foot a little bit further out to the right so that you can place your hands on the inside. Two options. Using your blocks, you can stay up a little bit higher, or you can drop down to your forearms. Try and keep that right knee close to you, and notice if you kind of came out of those hips, if you lifted those hips higher. Focus still on pushing and leaning your hips forward and closer to the ground. Focusing on your breath, especially if there is a lot of discomfort surrounding the hips now. Try and stay with your breath. Wonderful. Let's slowly come out as you inhale. And then a little twist, just extending that right arm up. Try and truly lengthen through the shoulders. Okay, from this twist, just extend the right arm back. Give yourself a little pull. You can even gaze towards your right hand. And then eventually we're going to drop that right hand on top of your right knee. Let your foot peel off the mat. So you're getting deeper into the groin muscles. It's called a stretching lizard. So very nice stretch. It actually might feel easier than the actual lizard we did previously. And then let's slowly make our way out of here. So flatten your foot, use your blocks, press yourself up. And once again, we get into our counter stretch, into a half split. Remember what we want to keep doing. Stretching mostly that hamstring. Notice your hips too. We want to try and keep the hips in a line. Sometimes we have the right hip a little more forward. So see if you can pull it more in or towards the back. All right, slowly coming out of here. Keep your blocks nearby. We have the other side to do, but for now, taking a little break in a child's pose. Rocking swaying should feel really good, especially squeezing those hip flexors, the front of your hips. And it might even feel different between your left and right, so notice if you can recognize any difference there. All right, let's get ready. Opposite leg, left leg comes forward. And let's begin just shifting in and out and adjusting that left foot as needed. So remember, we want to keep a nice gap so that the left knee ideally stays above the left ankle as we lean forward. Remembering your breath. And try and relax in some ways. I know it's a lot of hard work, but the more we resist, the more challenging the poses become. All right. Let's get into our low lunge. So you can either stay here or you can bring your arms over your head. Note that that's going to put a lot more pressure onto those hips. All this work we're doing is wonderful for stability and balance. And then it can also make you feel very energized. So tune in. What do you feel? How are your hips doing right now? And then sliding those hands down, transitioning our way into the counter stretch. Reminder, knee can be bent or leg can be straight. Ideally straight and maybe not going as low, especially if you have blocks to help you support. And then remembering we want to keep some length along the back, so chest towards your foot as opposed to head down to your knee. Couple of breaths in here. See if you can pull your left hip in so that your hips are in one line. And this pose is wonderful as it not only lengthens the hamstring on the left leg, but it also elongates our spine, which can actually help with releasing stress and anxiety. Let's give it another full breath in, full breath out, and then slowly start to come out, using your blocks as necessary, making sure you're placing your hands and your blocks onto the inside of your left foot, and then dropping our way down into a lizard pose. Maybe the forearms, depending on what worked for you on the opposite side. We always try to mirror the same, so please make your choice according to what you've done previously. And here we are targeting the hamstrings, calves, the hips, inner thighs, groins, but also the pelvic floor and the knee. Alright, let's slowly come out, getting into our twist, so left arm extends up. Keep pushing your hips, guiding your hips forward. Little twist, so left arm along the shoulder, gazing towards your left hand. And then let's use that hand placing on top of your left knee to guide that knee slightly out. So letting your left foot peel off of the ground and really sink deep down low into those groins. And you'll probably feel it a lot more on a right side in your hip flexor the lower you drop, just because everything is stretching and opening up so deeply. So please be mindful, remember your breath. And then let's slowly start to come up. So you're going to flatten your right foot, guide that knee in, and then once again make your way into our counter stretch, a half monkey, using your blocks, your props as necessary. Extending your left leg, lowering over, remembering that we want to keep some of that length along the back. Toes pointing up, breathing in. And then you can actually use your exhale to try and drop down deeper into the stretch. So breath in usually clears out some space, helps us let go. So see if you can do that. Alright, we are slowly going to come out and then release that left leg around, sinking back into our child's pose for a moment. Checking with those hips, rocking, swaying as needed. Hopefully it feels a lot more comfortable than the first time we've done this. And then getting into tabletop, let your hips just simply rock and sway from side to side. You can kind of pause and hold on each side, going as low as you would like. And then bringing the legs in and around. Make sure you have some space behind you, as we will be leaning backwards. So I would suggest to use block to begin with for this one, but you can also do it without a block. Keep some gap between your extended leg and the leg that's wrapped around. You can even use your hand to move the calf out of the way. Toes should be wrapped around as well. And then you can lean backwards, kind of like your sunbathing. Imagine you're here with me in Hawaii. And then perfectly adjustable pose. The closer your legs are together, the more intense it's going to be, especially if you notice leaning yourself to the left side. Just open your legs a little bit wider. We're definitely getting a really nice deep stretch along the quad, but we're also rotating the hips inwards. So we're rotating the hips internally, which is opposite to what we've done till now. And then noticing, as I just demonstrated, once your knee is lifting up, which it will, especially if the quad muscles are tight, make sure to press your right knee back into the ground. It will increase the stretch, maybe dropping down to the forearms. And we relax here for a few more breaths. Alright, inhale, let's slowly rise up, use your hand, slowly releasing that right leg and placing it nice and flexed just below your left knee. Pulling that left foot a little bit closer, and then you can use your hand to guide and push the right knee further away. So the idea is to try and bring the left foot closer in while pushing the right knee further away. So we're getting a really nice glute stretch here. Here we're focusing on stretching the hips still, but also the low back. And what's wonderful about this pose, you can perfectly customize it depending on how intense of a stretch you would like. Just keep on pushing that right knee further away. Couple of breaths in here. Deep inhale, deep exhale. Let's slowly release that right leg forward. Take a moment here, shaking off the legs. And then we follow those same poses on the opposite side. So block or not. Again, whatever you did on the opposite side, please try and mirror the same. Wrapping the left leg around. Make sure your toes as well are wrapped around. And then starting off with the legs a little bit wider perhaps. And then as your body gets adjusted, you can bring your knees, your legs a bit closer together. Leaning back once you're ready, so we're getting a bit of a stretch onto your abdomen as well. And as your body gets more adjusted to the stretch, you can keep bringing your knees closer and closer together. Maybe lowering down to your forearms, which will naturally possibly lift that left knee off of the ground. So just consciously gain control and push it, press it back against the ground. That will increase the stretch on your left quad. And in general, we're really focusing right now on not only stretching, but also strengthening your lower body. So let's tune in, see what the response is, and breathe our way through it. Check in with your hips. Check in with your low back. And then as you inhale, let's gradually make our way back. Gently releasing that left leg and then getting into our seated pigeon. So placing the left foot nice and flexed just below the right knee and then pulling or sliding that right foot closer and closer towards your sit bones to deepen the stretch. And of course, we want to be pushing the left knee away from your body. This pose can be wonderful to help your body prepare for the actual pigeon pose. It stretches more or less the same muscles, so we're really focusing on the hips, of course, the glutes, the psoas, also your piriformis muscles. Alright, let's give it one more deep breath in. As you exhale, start to release your legs and slowly coming out. Swing those knees just to help release any tension that we might have created. And then our next pose will be a butterfly pose. Again, perfect pose because it's super easy to customize and adjust to your preference. So basically, the further away your feet are from your pelvis, the easier the pose will be. The closer in you pull your heels, the closer towards your hips, the more intense the stretch is going to be. You can use your props. We'll get into more of a passive stretch, so we're not going to actively force the stretch or encourage the stretch. You're going to use your blocks and just get yourself nice and cozy. I like to place one block onto the flatter side on top of my feet and then another block on top, just as you see, to support my head, and that just makes it so nice and very relaxing and just soothing. Lets you relax into those hips, your shoulders, and that's what we're really trying to do. Just really let go, practicing some of that letting go and some surrender. So letting your body be passive in this pose, in this stretch, for a few breaths. And this pose is wonderful to increase hip mobility, since that's the focus of our class. And as we're staying here a little bit longer, we're getting more into the yin, feminine, passive energy, and we're also increasing or kind of lengthening the yin tissue, which is fascia, connective tissue, your ligaments, your joints, your tendons. And this specific pose, we actually also stimulating the kidneys, the ovaries, the adrenal, and the prostate glands. Alright, let you get out of here, so slowly lifting up, removing your props, and then please use your hands, help your knees come together, giving your body some love back, so hugging your knees, maybe rocking, swaying, so adjusting your way from the butterfly. And then we are actually going to lower down, so make sure you have enough space behind you, gradually making your way down. And then guiding those knees to your chest. Notice as you squeeze your knees, the tailbone tends to lift, so keep pressing that tailbone back down. Maybe ease out on the grip of your knees. Maybe hopping into another happy baby, which would be a fun way to compare, since we did happy babies at the very beginning of the class, and we've done a lot of hip work since. So this helps you just really reflect on that. Focusing inwards once again, feeling your breath, slowing it down. So using this time to regroup, recenter yourself, using that breath, becoming present with yourself if you happen to, get a little distracted. And then I want you to tune in into your hips, mostly on the physical level. Just see if it feels a little, I would say, more flexible, right? Does it feel more mobile? You gain some mobility in those hips. On a physical level, how are your hips feeling right now? And now let's focus on the emotional part of it. So we tend to store a lot of our feelings, emotion, trauma, experiences, you name it, into our hips, and sometimes with somatic work or deep hip stretches, we can kind of trigger these things to rise up to the surface. So I want you to really pay attention, reflect back throughout this time, throughout this practice, or now, if there's anything that came up for you. If not, that's totally fine. If yes, I want you to welcome it. Let it rise, let it bubble up. Don't suppress it back. You've done a lot of work to kind of trigger and unlock these things. So welcome it with open arms. Definitely no judgment. Maybe some curiosity. And then breathe your way through it. Remind yourself that you are safe in your body. Deep breath in. Let it go as you exhale. Let it leave your body. Welcome to stay here for a little bit longer, especially if you're processing anything. Work with that. Don't stop now. You can gradually guide your knees back to your chest, maybe rolling over to whichever side comes more naturally, and taking some time there, using this time to transition. Noticing again any sensations, any feelings, any thoughts potentially at this point. Taking all the time you need to stay. Feel free to cut me off and do your thing. And for those who feel ready to continue with their day, you can gradually make your way back up to a seated position. Alright, definitely a good time to journal today. Let's give it a full breath in, stretch those arms up. Exhale, drop them through your heart space. A few more. Inhale, feel your breath. Exhale, let go. Again, Breathe in, stretch your arms up. Exhale, drop your hands down. Thank you so much for joining me. Mahalo and namaste. Please drink some water and journal if you can.